Alright, sorry for the background noise in this video, guys, but this is part 2 of our Old to Gold modeling contest entry. So, first thing I want to do here is get all of these gaps taken care of. As you can see, we have noticeable gaps here at the middle of the leg and the middle of the feet. What we want to do is get rid of these and fill these completely to the point where you can't really tell that they were there. Now, in last night's video, I got everything assembled and I went ahead and pre-posed everything. Off camera, I went ahead and I glued everything the way it would be. We still left some parts able to be taken apart to make this process easier. So, in order to make this easier, what we're going to do is we're going to take the upper torso off, just so that we can have two separate things to work with. Now, we're going to use two ways of sealing these gaps. We're going to use Mr. Hobby, Mr. White Putty. There's a polyurethane plastic putty in a tube. Then we're going to use the old 1980s method, which is Tamiya cement, over some of these gaps. Make sure you have adequate ventilation too, just to be safe. Plus, I don't feel like having vapor lock. So, adequate ventilation, got everything I need. Got a little palette. Yeah, this is just a putty knife, but it'll work. So, let's get started. Here's our little palette. I know it's just a putty knife, but it'll have to do. But it's gonna have to do. Mostly because I don't feel like wasting an actual palette for this, or a cup. So we're gonna take our Tamiya, or Mr. Putty, White Putty. I'm using Mr. Hobby just because it's what I have and it's easier to work with. Unscrew the cap. See, it's a white liquid coming off white. Squeeze an adequate amount out onto our palette, per se. That's a pretty hefty amount. Now, what we want to do is try to get some of this into the cracks of the model. So we're going to use just a little cheap nylon brush. And this stuff's not going to be the most long working time, obviously. Now that we have our brush loaded up, we're going to just take and we're going to slowly start to work this into some areas of the model. You can see it's already getting hard. It's not good. There we go. That's one of the issues, making sure it stays wet long enough to work with. But you can see we're just working it into the joints like this. You probably want to pull from the bottom of the pile, since that's going to be a little wetter at the bottom than the stuff on top's going to be. All we're really trying to do is just fill all these gaps in. We're going to sand this too, of course, so don't try to be too clean with it. It's not like it's going to make much of a difference, so trying to avoid obvious details on the model, just because you don't want to cover up details that are going to be obviously seen. So, and again, it might look a little messy at the moment, but I can assure you that once you get everything sanded, it's not going to look messy. Okay. And again, we'll take care of a lot of the mess this is made by sanding. Again, I'm not trying to be clean really with this either. I'm trying to just get the gaps filled. That's my goal for tonight. If we can't get priming done tonight, then, well, that'll definitely be in the morning. Because I'm running at a daylight. So, like to have tried Vallejo's plastic putty for this, but I don't know, I've heard some mixed reviews about it. If you guys have used it, let me know what it's like. I haven't had a chance to really use it yet. Most of the hobby stores I have don't really carry Vallejo too in depth. Which is sad. Vallejo makes good hobby products, but it's not as aggressive on this side. I don't have to worry too much about gaps on this side as much as I do the other, because it's not as noticeably bad. But again, whatever we cover up, we can always scribe back in. I mean, it's not hard to scribe this back in. We're just going to work this into these cracks. Not away from, into. So like right here, we're working it into the cracks, avoiding the details. Avoiding the areas that are actual detail. Like the cuts here in the parts of the knee that separate the knee pads. But we are trying to fill the gaps where the plastic didn't fully go together. So and here on the foot, it's not exactly a gap, it's more like a raised detail. We'll do that. We'll put a little bit of this on there too, just to kind of adequately accommodate, make sure that it's able to be fixed. It's able to be smoothed. Again, you ain't really got to be too easy with this. I mean, like I said, it's going to be sanded. It's going to be covered up for the most part, so not only going to be sanded, it's going to be painted as well. So let's make sure you get it in the cracks. That's really all you want to do. You can see it's already starting to dry on our palette, so probably want to get a little more. Keep a rag by you too, so you can just wipe off your little cocktail stick here. I'm going to just pull directly from the tube this time, just because it's going to be easier. So, pull directly from the tube, and we'll go to the back of the model, and we'll just work this into, again, the most noticeable seam, which is running right down the middle of the leg. The gapping on the front of the other leg was bad. The gapping on the back of this leg is pretty bad. So, and again, I'm not going to do what other tutorials will do. I'm just going to show you how to get it on the model. There's really no wrong way to do this. As long as it gets in the recessed cracks, that's all you really want. And there's no reason for it to look pretty at this stage, since it's going to immediately be covered up with primer and immediately get sanded as soon as it's dry. So, and again, do this on the feet. Make sure that you are able to cover up the gapping. Make sure you have disposable sanders too. I'll show you what I mean by disposable sanders. Yeah, so this stuff's not that bad to work with, but you're going to want to be safe when you work with it. I mean, stuff's pretty noticeable, so. I know it looks rough now, but trust me, it won't once it's dry, because we're going to go and just sand all this down. Now, I don't like using the plastic cement method. I think it's too hard to work with myself. This stuff's far more adequate. But if you were to use the plastic cement method, you would pretty much just run it down all these seams and cracks. And then once it's dry, you would sand it flat. I'm not going to do that. Mostly because it's just too time consuming. I am instead going to just continue to use this method because it works and it's easier. And we're going to just do the most noticeable parts of the torso, which are right here on top of the shoulders. There are times you have to just get in there with a thumb and just do it that way. Which sometimes it's the easiest method. Again, there's no reason to rush this process either. I mean, there's no reason to really be in a rush with this either. I mean, you know, keep everything smooth, working good. Yeah, it's not too bad. A little bit of this right down the middle of the head, down the middle of the head crest. Honestly, that's about all we gotta do for the upper torso. There's not as many gaps on the upper torso as there is the lower. Yeah, we got a couple spots on the arms we gotta fill too, but that's not too bad. It's just like right here to fill. It's all one continual piece, so as long as it works. That's what I mean by filling in our gaps. Completely negating that ever was two separate pieces sandwiched together. Just gonna rub that into the joints. We're gonna wipe off the excess. There are times when you'll have to, when you do your hobby, get up close and a little personal with your models. Since I don't plan on ever using this little port here, we're going to just completely omit that entirely. So one way we're going to do that is, let me get this filled. And I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to just, again, this ain't got to be pretty. There's no reason for this to be pretty. We're trying to fill a gap on a very old model kit. So, may not be the smoothest thing in the world, but we're going to sand it, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to get rid of this little port here. The reason why, I'm never going to use this port. There's a couple methods to use. I like this method. Just do that, wipe a little bit out, a little more on there, wipe it out, a little more on, and there you go. You just do this a couple of times so it fills the hole. And I get to the point where you won't even notice there was a hole there. And we're going to leave this to dry for a few minutes. We're going to change gloves, obviously. Take this, put it to the side. And now we're going to get our sanding stuff. Really, this is where we want to have adequate ventilation. I got my little sanding sponges. I got my parts. We're going to check and make sure everything's dry. Yeah, it's pretty good. just so you can flake some of this off. That's good. You want to be able to flake some of it off because you've probably gone a little bit heavy with it. That's fine. That's a good thing. You'll want to be able to do that. Again, make sure things are actually dry. If you do this and things smear, that means it's not dry yet. Yeah, it looks like we're pretty good. Now, on areas like this that are completely flat, we're going to get all the excess little bits off. We're going to just go this way with the gap we're trying to fill to get the right look and appearance we want. The more we sand, the smoother it's going to get. And what it means is we completely fill that gap in. That's good. There is no more gap there. That's what we're looking for. Since we're going to be pretty much doing it on the entire kit, it might look weird. It's going to be like, oh, well, why'd we do all this if we're just going to immediately sand it right back off? This stuff's essentially a liquid polymer. So what it does is it goes into the cracks of the plastic, fills those gaps that need to be filled with essentially a melted plastic, increasing rigidity and strength of the model, while also making it just so much easier to work with. Alright, now that we've done that, we're just going to take a little bit of compressed air, or a brush, probably some compressed air, and blow this off. But we'll do that once we get done sanding everything, just to make it easier. This is where our smaller little sanding discs come in. Our 400 grit. We're going to be able to get in some real tight spots here. That was about what working on these old kits would have entailed anyway, so I know that from experience. I've worked on quite a few of these. Fun fact, my first high grade was the Endless Waltz Wing Zero high grade. And that's a pretty rough kit. At this point, it's pretty rough. Considering there are other versions of the Wing Zero that are a lot nicer. Alright, I'm not trying to get really perfect, but that is pretty good. I am going to wash this off with alcohol once we are done sanding, so that the primer is going to adhere a little bit better. Then we'll do the upper torso. And this is what I mean by just, break off these little spots like this that are going to be an issue. So, right up here too. Let's try to get all that off. Little schmutz off. But not as much to really patch on the upper body as you would think there would be. The upper body was much simpler to assemble too. So. All right. Again, not as much really to worry about here, so it makes the job of sanding easier. We're just going to hit it with our finish sanders. Because again, we're going to use a surfacer, so it's not like we have to be perfect. A lot of what's going to hide these imperfections is going to be that surface primer. You can see I've not completely negated the articulation. I left enough there to be able to work with when we're doing this. That's one of the reasons why. So that as we're sanding, we're not going to be, breaking pieces off. We're going to just, guarantee that everything's smooth. Yep, that's nice and smooth. Sorry for the sniffles. I was fighting a cold all of last week and still trying to cling on, so. I'll meet you guys at the other desk and we'll do some cleanup. All right, and we're back at the regular hobby desk right now because I'm going to clean up some parts of this model. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a bottle of rubbing alcohol, just regular 91% isopropyl alcohol. We're going to get a nice pipette full. We're going to just fill up a little cup. Not all the way, but nice majority of the way. Let me get you guys a better angle. All right, I think this is going to be more of a comfortable angle for you guys. So I'm going to go take some Q-tips, dip them in some rubbing alcohol, take our model that we've meticulously sanded. Normally I wouldn't recommend doing this, but we're trying to get all the imperfections off. So this will get hand grease, this will get some of the stuff that we've overlooked off. So even take some of the stuff we might have ham-fisted or overdone off, which is good. Really what we're trying to do is just make sure the model's a clean surface. The old models definitely are definitely gonna be tedious. This is one aspect as to how it can be so tedious. Again, you don't have to be perfect, but getting enough. Even cleaning off the parts we didn't sand just to be safe. You never know. Even with compressed air, you don't know what's gonna have gotten things off and what hasn't. bit of re-glue those ankles that popped loose on us. Okay. And there's the lower body. I'm just going to take and scrape off. Also cut in some parts that got a little rough in the process of before we prime this, we're going to, of course, do what we've been doing, which is make sure that everything fits back together once we drive everything down. Since after all, a competition piece, so gonna have to pull out all the stops. All right. What we're doing is just making sure non-contaminated surface, basically. Some spots we'll fix as we go. All right, there's that. Again, we'll go ahead and we'll fix some of the spots we had some overshoot on. For the most part, that's pretty clean. This is a soft brush from Gun Primer that's made for getting dust off your models, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. We want as good as possible. All right. All of our gaps are filled. Everything's ready to go. So, we will prime this in just a second. Don't go anywhere. Well, change of plans. Looks like we're not going to be priming tonight because it's almost sundown, and well, I don't really want to rattle can prime in the pitch darkness. So we will rattle can in tomorrow's video. Hopefully a little bit earlier, a little more daylight out. But stay tuned for the third part of this, and then eventually get to the painting process. Thanks guys, I'll see you tomorrow.